And it's also about change as well. And she's breaking through among white working class voters on the issue of change. So the economy and change working for her cohesively.
You're talking about Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. There, obviously, those are crucial. That's that blue wall. But when you look more broadly, does this tip the scale as you look at other crucial must-win states?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Non-college whites are a key group across the board. They are a plurality of voters in the electorate when you compare them with college-educated whites or if you compare them with African-Americans and Hispanics, and especially in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Look at that. They're the majority of voters. The fact that Harris is closing in on Trump with them is the big reason why she has those advantages she has now in those New York Times Siena College
Absolutely
polls.
Fascinating,
There.
and not what probably anybody expected, certainly, from what Joe Biden was saying.
But a welcome thing for Democrats, definitely.
Ruh-roh, Rastro. Fox News poll today shows Trump with a 1-point lead over Harris, 49-48. He leads by 2 points in the Daily Mail poll today, but a new Cook political report shows in the swing states Harris is leading or is tied with Trump in all but one of the 7 battlegrounds. She holds a narrow lead, 48-47 in those states in head-to-head. Also in May, 82% of the voters who supported Biden in 2020, just 82% of the voters who supported him in 2020 were voting for him this fall. So we lost 18% of the voters who voted for him in 2020. Harris now is getting 91% of those voters, 9 more percentage of the Biden 2020 voters than he was getting in his 2024 reelection campaign. 56% of battleground states voters say that Kathleen Kamala represents the chance to turn the page of the Trump-Biden era. 59% see her as representing a new generation of leadership. She is winning Biden, Trump double haters. You know what that is? Double Trump, Biden, Trump double haters. They hate Trump and they hate Biden. She's winning them by 30 points right now. So over Trump. So that's where we're at. And once everybody gets to know her, I think they would rapidly change their mind, except for the people who love their ears being tickled and being lied to. But I don't know if there's enough time. The media is working against us like always, and even worse so nowadays, it seems, obviously. And she is creating Orwellian fake headlines, which we'll get to a little later on Google. And the news outlets, she is altering their headlines to make her look like she's got great coverage. They are not going after her in any way so far. If it was Trump, they would be, headlining everything, attacking him. Meanwhile, Nikki Haley has a blunt message for Trump today, and I agree with her. Quit whining. Focus on policy and messaging instead of crowd sizes and rallies. Harris, her race and her attacks on her intellect. Yeah, he said it again, I think, today, too, about her either being stupid or dumb or something. I mean, dude, that's so playing into her hands. You're just giving her votes when you do that. I really think so. She says you can't win on those things. The American people are smart. Treat them like they're smart. It's not about her. It's about the American people. Talk to them. Let them know you need their vote. And also, she said she had a great damning line about Kamala today. I take her at her word that she thinks that illegal immigrants should be able to vote and given driver's license, and that she wants to ban fracking and kill a bunch of U.S. jobs. Take her at her word. So she also talks about the target issues, the fact that Kamala is taking money from those who didn't go to college and is giving it to those who did. The fact that Afghanistan fell, that she was the last person in the room and signed off on it, etc. She said it was great. Did you see the Taliban with their billions of dollars of U.S. military gear riding through the streets, parading, showing their dominance now with the United States military gear that Joe and Kamala left? She signed off on that. She thought it was great, giving terrorist regime that are back in bed with Al-Qaeda billions of dollars of gear to make them. They said never again will our sovereignty be challenged, never again, because they've got every piece of gear. They had choppers flying in that we gave them by leaving them behind, deuce and a halves, all these massive transport trucks and other trucks. It is just the most vile, outrageous, and filthy, disgusting thing you could see. Nonetheless, we now have news that Tim Walz will be debating J.D. Vance on October 1st for CBS News in New York City, just announced late today. I want to ask you some questions about this. Tim Walz will debate J.D. Vance on October 1st on CBS. How do you think Vance should approach this upcoming debate with Walz? Should he go after policy and avoid being mean, or go mean? 800-288-WBAP is our number. How do you think Vance should approach this upcoming debate with Walz, and should he go after policy and avoid being mean or go mean? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. How do you want Vance to go after Walz, and how should he go after policy or be mean? All right, here's what I'm going to say about this. J.D. Vance is an incredible debater. And it's pretty amazing on this. This is going to be a very bad debate, I predict, because for Walz and Kamala, because Walz has already said publicly, I could not believe this. I heard this the other day, and he actually said, I'm not a very good debater. And apparently that's true. I don't know for sure, but that's quite possible. You have a combat veteran who was in combat. Now, granted, he was a journalist for the Marines, but it doesn't matter. He was in combat. When you're in combat and you got a Marine uniform on, you could be shot and killed just as easily as anybody else, blown up, etc. So he was there, and as you know, Walz ran away from it. And Walz said he was in war, and you shouldn't have the same weapon of war that I had while I was in war. He never was in war, and I think that J.D. Vance is really going to draw a tremendous contrast to this, and that's going to be perfect. I think J.D. Vance is going to nail him on how Walz was frozen for 3 days and allowed Minneapolis to burn, and said let it burn, let it go, abandon the 3rd precinct of Minneapolis, according to police officers who heard him say that and were on the scene. And he said that the National Guard were 19-year-old cooks, when in fact the National Guard, when it came in, they stopped it. And in fact, the head of the National Guard for the state of Minnesota testified in a Senate hearing after that, a state Senate hearing after that, determining what went down and what worked. The Guard literally quelled it the day they went in. Had they gone in 3 days earlier, the head of the National Guard for the state of Minnesota said, yes, it would never have happened. And that was stunning to hear, and that was stunning to find out about. The homicide rates and the murder rates and the crime rates against blacks is insane. It's up around 83% under Walz's tenure. You are more likely to die, be murdered, and be a victim of crime if you're black under him, like 3 to 5-fold than you were without him in the mayor beforehand. It's stunning. That city has fallen, and it's his fault. Keith in Fort Worth, hello, WBAP.
Hey, Chris. I think Vance should attack him and just tear him apart. Start with his service career in the military, then work on to him after birth abortion. That's just disgusting. Yeah,
he's actually for abortion at any moment, even right before the baby's born.
Right. So just go down through the whole list of everything he's for.
How about the transgender people? If a kid who says if a boy who says he's a girl who's 12 here in Texas runs away and gets to Minnesota, Walz will not. He passed a law that says we will not cooperate with the state of Texas authorities or any federal authorities if the child gets there, absconds without the parents' knowledge and gets gender surgery, reassignment surgery. We will do that for them without their parents' consent or knowledge, and we will not let the parents help track them down in the state, and we will not prosecute
exactly.
Yeah. So your child's genitals, yeah.
You need to show that child abuse. You need to explain, because think about it, when you're having a debate with someone and the American people are watching, you have to be on the American people's level.
Yes, and he also...
You have to explain to everyone that why this is bad and why you should vote for me over someone who wants to hurt your children or, who lied about this, who lied about that. You have to be on the American people level, and I think Vance can do that.
And his wife, Walz's wife, said she opened her windows up all night long to smell the burning of the city. She enjoyed that. She literally did. She thought it was somehow good to experience that. As I mentioned, the high crime rates under his watch, the amount of death for blacks and crime victimhood of blacks. I think also his supporting a radical Islamic terrorist supporter who supported tweets for supporting Hamas and how Hamas should be able to defend itself after the terrorist attack on October 7th. And also how this radical imam tweeted out pro-Hitler propaganda and a pro-Hitler movie that just came out, and they tweeted it out. And he said this was a master teacher, and he learned under this master teacher and has met with him many times over the years, and that he studied him, and he's a master teacher. And so, I mean, these things are critical. He supports radical Islamists. He supports your child absconding and getting gender reassignment surgery against your wishes. He supports killing a baby like 5 minutes before the birth. He bankrupted the city. He let it burn. He froze, and he is making Black lives not matter. So I appreciate your call, Keith, and I love your explanation, my friend.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, brother. All right, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. How do you think? We have a brand new debate coming up between J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota for vice presidential debate, October 1st, CBS News. How do you think Vance should approach this? How do you want him to approach this upcoming debate with Walz, his stances and how he handles it? And should he go after policy or avoid being mean and avoid being mean and go after policy? Or should he go mean? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. We'll talk to Hank in Harker Heights coming up next, plus your call on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I've got more details, too, on what the Walz camp has said today and what the Vance camp has said today, coming up at 9:17 here on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP.
I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
There is a difference between being in a combat area, being involved at a time of war, and actually being in a position where people are shooting at you. There is no evidence that at any time Governor Walz was in a position of being shot at, and some of his language could easily be seen to suggest that he was. So that is absolutely false when he said that about gun rights out there.
Well, Rutrow Rastro, here's his wife. She loved the smell of the George Fentanyl riots, the St. George Floyd, blessed be his name, riots.
I would say those first days, when there were riots, I could smell the burning tires. And that was a very real thing. And I kept the windows open for as long as I could because I felt like that was such a touchstone of what was happening.
She loved it. Burn it all down. Burn the 3rd precinct. Burn it all down. You're right. Terrorize, destroy, harm, lawlessness. Let me smell some of that. Give me some more of that. Kind of reminds you of the I love the smell of napalm in the morning quote from that great war movie, Apocalypse Now. 3 lines open, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. J.D. Vance will be debating Tim Walz October 1st, CBS in New York. It's been accepted this evening. And how should Vance approach this upcoming debate with Walz? Should he go after policy and avoid being mean, or should he go mean? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Gregory in Southlake, hello. What's up, WBAP?
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
I would take Walz's comment that he's not a good debater as a saint and wouldn't take that to be true. They probably have videotape from past gubernatorial debates he's had, so they'll certainly study that. But
right.
Here's my key thing. The debate you said was scheduled for October 10th.
Yes, October 10th, yeah. No, October 1st. October 1st, excuse me.
Okay, well, here's the point. There are a number of states, including possibly certain areas of Pennsylvania, but Virginia, Minnesota.
Yes, they're voting.
There's a whole bunch of states that are voting 2 weeks before that debate.
Yes, correct.
And I think they really should get the debate scheduled before any early voting starts, because it becomes a thing. You wind up in the same position where people who don't know this guy and just, okay, I always voted Democrat. And then when J.D. Vance destroys him in the debate, they're going, oh, my God, what a mistake I made. And there's no way to recall it.
This guy can't be our vice president. It's a disaster kind of a thing. Yeah, good point. I agree. And I think I was thinking Trump should, you know what I'm thinking? I think he should say, Kamala's afraid to debate me 3 times or propose 3. I'm not doing any unless you do 3. Let's go.
I still think they should do the debate on video hosted on X, concurrent simulcast on Spotify and have Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan be the moderator.
That would be great, but it'll never happen with Tucker. I love Tucker, but it'll never happen. They won't let Tucker do it. Rogan would be fascinating. Hank from Harker Heights, WBAP, what's up?
Hey, Chris, how you doing,
good,
man?
Thanks. Good.
But I think 1 October Vance-Walz debate is 2.5 months down the road, and like your last caller said, hey, the early voters in Pennsylvania or whatever are going to already have casted their mail-in votes. But I'm kind of saying that I agree with you from the standpoint of, let Trump do his rallies and let Vance do the town halls, because he's a crackerjack person. He's got his stuff down.
Yeah, and I think he can stay focused for the most part.
That's right. So that's a good, partnership there.
I agree, and I appreciate your call, my friend. Roy in DeSoto. Hello, WBAP.
Hello. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking my call.
Welcome.
My comment is often the question is raised, how can you support someone who supports abortion, someone who was a governor of a state and there was so much violence that he didn't seem to stop at the right time. And, of course... He
didn't for 3 days. He watched it burn. Yeah, he did, yeah.
Right. Exactly. And the issue with the military record. I think what you fail to, not you, but some people fail to realize is that often there are individuals who say, how can you support a man who has 34 felony convictions? How can you support a man who's been convicted of rape in a civil trial? How can you support a man who led an insurrection on January the 6th? Just like people on one side of the aisle are able to look past that and vote for that individual, how are you able to disparage people who are able to look past what you consider?
So then what does that make you want to do? We got to go, but what does that make? Who are you shooting for right now? Who are you aiming for? Who are you going to vote for?
Beyond the shadow of a doubt, Kamala Harris, because
I want to. Can I put you on hold because I want to ask you some questions? Can you do that?
Sure.
All right, stand by. This will be very fascinating, Roy. Okay, that's coming up next in the Chris Crock Show. Then also we're going to get into the economy. Hear a woman break down and start to cry over how she can't afford to live anymore. Child care, rent, insurance, where inflation hits the hardest now. Wall Street Journal piece. And the new inflation breakdown for July in one chart that'll blow your mind how bad it is right now, no matter what numbers say what. That's next. Chris Crock, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3, coming up at 9:33. Speaking of 9:33. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. In just a minute, we're going to get into the inflation and all this stuff. Kamala is wanting to break away from Biden, and we're going to talk about how bad prices are. You can hear a woman who breaks down crying about not being able to afford paying for food for her children in Philadelphia. And some of the new breakdown for July inflation from year to year, and many things. And we're going to get into that in a second. I wanted to continue discussing with Roy in DeSoto, who says, Chris, and Roy, before we pop you back on real fast, I'm going to respond to your call and then let you come on where we continue to discuss further. I just want to respond to you saying, well, people say, well, this about Kamala, well, for everything you say about her, well, Trump, you said, has been convicted, at least in civil court, as being a rapist. A felon in criminal court, an insurrectionist. And to those, I just quickly wanted to reply before we go on with our conversation. Raped a woman, didn't even know what year it was. And she was funded and backed by a liberal Democrat group that was using her and funding her to hurt Trump. Not to, win the case because it's right, but because they wanted to hurt him. Number two, the felon situation, the number 3 highest person in the entire Justice Department in America stepped down to go assist the prosecutor in a case that the federal government looked at. It was their responsibility to prosecute, and the Federal Elections Commission looked at, and they said there's no crime here, there's no federal election, nothing was broken. And yet the Biden Justice Department let its number three guy go, 2 heartbeats from being the Attorney General of the United States, to go prosecute a local case with Alvin Bragg, who actually Alvin Bragg's predecessor, Cy Vance, said there's nothing here, I'm not prosecuting it. Then Alvin Bragg was his predecessor who promised to go after Trump, and then he said, I'm not going after him. One of his staff left and wrote a book attacking him for not going after Trump. So then he said, okay, I'm going to go after him. And the Manhattan jury for the civil trial on the rape and the criminal felony conviction is 90 to 95% Democrat. Perfect jury pool to rig it. And then the insurrection you talk about, nobody died on January 6th at the Capitol except an unarmed woman named Ashley Babbitt. And a real insurrection, Joe Biden actually said it himself. He said, you need an F-15 to overthrow our government. Clearly, there was no F-15 involved in what you're calling an insurrection. And a real insurrection is when Yevgeny Prigozhin led the Russian, the Wagner group, with thousands of troops who went in towards Moscow. They shot out 2 helicopters and a $1 billion jet, and they killed 8 soldiers. And Putin surrounded Moscow with tanks before they got them to stand down. That's an insurrection, not unarmed people raiding and rioting the Capitol, which is not excusable, but is not an insurrection. So that's my response. And I don't want to debate with you. I just wanted to reply to that. And then I want to get into the fact that you're saying, and Roy, what was the thrust beside that? And I understand you're equivocating what I say about Kamala and vice versa. So I wanted to ask you a few questions then about the fact that she's a blank slate. Because, I mean, I can play you 5 times she said in the past year that Bidenomics is working. Do you think it's working?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So people are paying 22% more for their insurance today than last year. Here we go. I got the interest rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is more than twice it was when Joe Biden and Kamala took office. The median home price has risen 40%. The illegal border entries has surged under Joe Biden and Kamala to around 12 to 14 million. And Gaza and Ukraine are at war, and we had a horrific disaster in Afghanistan. I would hope you would agree with that. And Kamala said she was the last person in the room and signed off on it. So she's told us, so you want more of that, I guess, is what you're saying, because she said it's all been working.
Well, I think one of the things that you're not making a part of the equation, your facts and figures are absolutely correct on many of the things. There's no way that time will afford me the opportunity to challenge each and every one of them. But what you're failing to realize is that Donald Trump does not represent civility. Even the very fact that, and now I've heard you do it 4 times, you all choose to purposefully mispronounce her name. That's one of the reasons.
How do you pronounce her name? Let me ask you. How do you pronounce her name?
Kamala.
That's right.
Kamala.
Right.
You said Kamala. You just like Donald Trump. And please allow me. It's
not intentional. Listen, it's not intentional. I hope you believe that. It's not easy.
Okay. Let me make my point.
No, but I mean that's just a personal thing. It's not intentional. I'm not trying to hurt the woman personally or whatever.
But that's how it's viewed, and that's why Republicans in many instances are in an absolute panic, because there is absolutely no civility. Mike Pence, in our circle, those of us who would consider ourselves moderates, represented a conservative message from a civil and respectful person.
I agree.
But you all kicked him out. You all kicked him to the side, which means if you're allowed,
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Chris, I didn't. Okay.
I just said
evangelical Christianity says,
which I'm
we don't want a man who represents civility, who refuses to break the law, who does not listen to a dictator, but we do want a man who has absolutely no respect for people, calls them out of their name, calls them stupid, calls them ignorant, calls them dumb, calls Ted Cruz's wife ugly, said his daddy had to do with the assassination of Kennedy. How on earth do you think people will continue to support that ungodly nonsense?
Let me repeat. Let me ask you a question on that. One
final comment. And I'm done.
You can comment back after me, but listen, it's my turn to respond to what you've said. You said a lot there, too.
Oh, okay.
So I would respond to you by saying it's not the insults that I like. I denounce them. I don't know if you listen to my show with regularity. I denounce them. I think it's hurting us, not helping us. And I think the more that he does that, the more it's going to hurt us. The polls and winning. I think his polls are his policies are what work. We saw under 4 years there was no all the things you guys say that he's a threat to this or that. What we saw was low inflation, perfect inflation, which is 1.4%. We saw jobs doing extremely well. We saw the economy doing very well. We saw America came first. We saw no wars. We saw peace in the Middle East. In fact, Jerusalem, the capital, was moved to where it belongs, and everybody else said it couldn't be done. The Abraham Accords, which Biden and Harris have embraced. So we saw tremendous things happen with our economy, our dollars, our jobs, and our country, and the peace in the world. That's what matters.
Okay, and my response to that would be, it does not matter the behavior, the level of immorality, the ungodliness that's projected at the top of the ticket, as long as we get what we want in dollars and cents. That's ungodliness.
It's not dollars and cents. Well, no, sir, it's not dollars and cents. It's about peace, stability, and prosperity, meaning jobs, health care.
Dollars and cents.
That's okay.
The jobs.
Okay, let me play this. Here's an answer. This was an African American poll, Black Philly voters on MSNBC. This will answer your question simply.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
Who do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't, but I have to go work.
She wants to feed her children, and that matters more than orange man bad or mean tweets.
Right, and let one simple response.
By the way, she did blame the federal government, which is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Go ahead.
Right. So every one of those that you can play for me, I can also play one that says I had a life or death situation because I was carrying a child from rape, from incest, and I could not get the medical help that I needed.
Where?
Because the doctors were not certain.
Where?
In Texas. The doctors were not certain if you'll allow me to finish, I didn't interrupt you.
I got you. Texas is fine.
Not certain.
It's still going to go for Trump
on abortion laws,
right.
And because of that, I had to either suffer through it or go to another state. And now he bragged about putting people on the Supreme Court who would overturn it. Now that it's been overturned, and it's evident that it's a losing argument. Now he wants to take it back to the states.
No. It is at sir. It's at the states. It is at the states. You're misunderstanding this all. California has abortion up till the birth, and that hasn't changed. It is up to the states. And what is ungodly is to murder. And to take the life of an innocent child is to murder. And that's one of the most ungodly things of all. But I appreciate your call. You're a fantastic discussion and debate. And I urge you to call in again, Roy. Thank you for your great call from DeSoto. Appreciate it. All right. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. We zero in on inflation. and the plight of Americans, childcare, rent, insurance, where inflation hits the hardest. I'll be talking to you about where's inflation hitting you the hardest right now. Which presidential candidate do you trust more to help your situation? How closely do you think Kamala is tied to Joe Biden and his policies? How have their policies with Biden-Harris affected you? 20% inflation. Everything that you touch, buy, consume right now is inflated by 20% under Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. Wars, home energy soaring, gas for your car, insurance, interest rates. What haven't they affected in your life? Even your marriage is affected with financial stress. That can lead to divorce, for example. What do you think Kamala's policies will be like compared to Biden's and compared to Trump's? All that is next on the Chris Crock Show, and more details on this and how difficult it is for Americans right now and specific examples on the Chris Crock Show at 9:48 on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.
Bidenomics is working.
Meanwhile, most renters feel like they will never be able to own a home.
The typical starter home is now worth more than $1 million. For many buyers, that means achieving the American dream of owning a home is increasingly difficult, if not impossible.
And Bidenomics is working.
Listen to this stat. Since 2020, food prices have increased 26%, and we are all feeling it when we go grocery shopping.
Bidenomics. It's working. It's a term we're very proud of, I must tell you.
Gas prices are on the climb across the U.S.
Prices are nowhere near the levels they were at in 2020.
And Bidenomics is working.
So if you get 3 consecutive monthly readings on job gains that are less than 125,000, I'm beginning to smell a recession.
Bidenomics is working.
It's working.
Everybody's having a good time. Kamala's surging in the polls, but inflation not looking good. The average home went from $1,700 a month under Trump for mortgage, went up to $3,300 under almost 3.5 years, 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It's outrageous. Insurance went up 22% in 1 year. And here's some other year-over-year prices that just came in. Juices and drinks, 19.2% increase. Eggs, 19.1% increase. Motor vehicle insurance from year-over-year, 18.6%. Americans are, Yahoo Finance says today, Americans are cutting back on groceries to pay for their air conditioning. Here's a daycare bill that shot up for one woman for her older daughter. Shot up last month from $1,200 a month to $1,650 a month, $430 a month more for the same service. Rent and electricity bills up 10% or more over the past 2 years, says the Wall Street Journal today. Car insurance up 40% in 2 years, 40% for car insurance in 2 years. We are being bankrupt. Electricity bill 1 month last summer for 1 month last summer cost the Chesapeake, Virginia man $500, Journal says. I have middle class pay, says this 32-year-old woman, but I feel like I'm lower income. So I'm asking you this question. Where's your inflation hitting you hardest right now? Which presidential candidate do you trust more to help your situation? How closely is Kamala tied to Joe Biden and his policies, in your opinion? How have their policies affected you? And what do you think our new policies will be compared to Biden's and Trump's? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. 3 lines open. Chime in right now. Let's go to Chris in Flower Mound. Chris, WBAP. Oh, hold on, Chris. There you go. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Chris? How you been?
All right, brother. Thanks.
Oh, nothing much. Yeah, I just want to respond to your last caller who seemed to just have a really pathos-based argument, just like any other liberal out there. And, you know, everything seemed to be extremely anecdotal. So I just kind of want to get your opinion on, you know, how do we deal with that? And also, to answer your current question, we got Kamala Harris as vice president right now. She says she's going to end inflation, close the border, do all this, yada, yada, yada. Well, guess what? She's the vice president right now. Why isn't she doing, you know, exactly what she says she's doing?
More importantly, she's
absolutely crazy.
Today, actually, I was talking about how she's going to try to separate herself from Biden. But what is she going to do? Rip the man and rip the man's policies that she supported and said were working for 4 years? Is she is she psychologically is she psychotic or something? Does she not understand what she's been telling us for 4 years?
Yeah, you know what? I got a couple friends that went to did some time in med school and did some surgery. I think I can get her hooked up with a nice lobotomy if she needs one.
Well, I mean, I think that it's obvious that she's going to have to lie. It's like she's going to have to denounce the man she's praised for 4 years. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And every policy she supported all her political life has been against everything she's telling us now. The voters need to be smart enough to figure this out, and Trump needs to be much more disciplined. He's doing very poorly, I would say, lately in defining her issues and policies versus his. Abby and Garland, you're on WBAP.
Well, I just want to say ditto to everything you're saying, but you really hit it on the head when you said stress in the marriage. Yes, my husband's more irritable, and it's actually time for him to retire, which, of course, he's not going to now. He's terrified, too.
Right.
And, I mean, it's really time for him, too, but he's just not going to do it. And it's really affected our happiness and our sense of well-being, you know, which is well-deserved after years of working. But it does make you irritable. Just like you said, stress in the marriage, big time. We're canceling a vacation. We're not going on a vacation. Afraid to spend money, in other words, because it might get worse.
Can I ask the range of income you guys have roughly combined?
Oh, God. 175,000.
Holy crap. People need to hear this. This is so real. How in God's name do people that make $50,000 or $60,000 combined do it right now?
I don't know, and I'm a stay-at-home mom now, so I don't even work. That's my husband's income.
That's why that woman broke down and cried.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know how you can make it on food stamps and live. Abby, I appreciate your call. Thank you for your honesty. We need to keep sharing. And by the way, does Trump being mean, is that going to stop you from voting for Trump if he's mean? Abby?
Nothing will stop me from voting for Trump.
Even though he's mean and nasty, because it's like, I can't even retire. So what do I give a frog's fat about the mean stuff? Abby, great call. Appreciate it. We've got 3 lines open, 800-288-WBAP. More details on inflation, how bad it is, how it's hitting you. And do you trust Kamala? Who do you blame for these these policies that have destroyed our economy and our pocketbooks? And who do you think will do a better job of it for president? That's next on the Chris Crock Show at 9:03, including all these people missing out while others are doing very well, apparently. And it's not the folks that are the average folk. All that coming up at 10:03 on WBAP.